Hello everyone. Today in this class, in this video, we will be talking about writing a function, just basic stuff about JavaScript, and we will go into unobtrusive JavaScript. So that is what we are going to be focusing on. So this is going to be heavily on using the DOM elements. If you look at your weekly folder, you can see that we will be covering a lot of DOM functions, events, and then we will go into unobtrusive JavaScript. If you look at my screen here, this is my my little page, my little application from last week, Lab 1 content. I had shared this content with you on GitHub. So remember, whenever I share content, make a copy of it. Please do not check the changes back into my repository, because then we will lose the base that I want to use for other students. Please clone it down, make a copy of that folder, and then check it in as your own, making changes. So what I'm thinking today is that it is really easy to test a few things. Before we talk about unobtrusive JavaScript, I want to talk about how JavaScript was used a little before we came up with this unobtrusive JavaScript. So you got to know like the why before you can better appreciate the concept behind unobtrusive JavaScript. So what I'm planning today is to just make a few changes using the DOM and show you, how we can add more functionality to this page. Right now, it doesn't do much. Well, it takes you it's just basic HTML and CSS3. We do not have any functionality at this point. If you see, I have used all HTML5 tags. We have an aside here. We have the article. We have like 5 different places here. I followed the same criteria based on the requirements of Lab 1 and created this. So let's go into adding some functionality. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm thinking that maybe I can add some style. So let's see how we can add some style. I have my Visual Studio Code here. I have pulled up my project, all my CSS, HTML, and JavaScript you can see here. So if we want to add any functionality, for example, an on-click event, something to happen on an on-click event, then normally what we do is we would just add the event to the tag. So if you look at the W3 schools, there's a whole bunch of events that you can look at. Like they say very simply, HTML events are things that happen to HTML elements, right? So some of them are very intuitive. I think most of them are. On click for a button means that when you click on the button, something's going to happen. Same with mouse over, on key down, on load. On load is a very important event. We use that with like the windows.onload. Usually, if you want something to happen right after you load a page, that is the function that we use. Sorry, the event that we use. So this gives you like a summary of all the events and how you can play around with it. I hope that you guys are taking advantage of the exercises that are given here. They're really simple and let you make the changes and see the results right away. So let's try something here from our events. So let's try using an event. So what I'm thinking is, if I go into this div here, I want to say on mouse over, oops, okay. On mouse over, I want to call the function called add style. Okay, so all I said here is on mouse over, I want to call this function called add style. On mouse out, I want to call a function called remove style. What do we mean by this? Like, where should this code exist? This should be part of your JavaScript. This references a function that you would be writing. So let's go in to the JavaScript file and say function add style. And then we say function remove style. Remove style. So basically what's happening here is I'm just creating a placeholder for these functions. In JavaScript, you don't have, like in any other language, I mean, functions don't necessarily have to have any parameters. JavaScript parameters are optional. If you give a parameter, you want to make sure, like if a function is taking 3 parameters, you pass like a default value. If you don't really, you want to make sure that you handle for that default scenario. I'm just gonna put it here. If somebody is not passing the value, you want to make sure that you can handle the default value. So our function, we are saying in the page that it uses this as the parameter. So what do we mean by that? So on mouse over, on this event, we call this function and pass this element. That is this. So when I say this is called as a this pointer. This points to the element from where add style is being invoked. This refers to the div with an ID background that had just had an on mouse over event, which triggers the call to the function called add style. So we are passing this as the parameter. This is an object, right? Because the div is an object in the DOM. So we want to make sure that we pass an object here. So when I do that, I want to set the object dot background color as red. And when I say remove style, I'm gonna leave it blank. You might think, like, what is the point of this? This is just for learning purposes. We are not gonna really like have something like that that is so specific to a scenario. But for learning purposes, this is a great way so that you're not adding a lot of complication to your code. So all I do was this style function, even though it's limiting, right now it only has one functionality to set the background color of that div that's coming in. So the div I'm referencing is this div. The background color of this element is going to be modified. And so add style is attached to this event on mouse over of this div with class background. Oh, let's see. Yeah, with class background. Okay, cool. So let's try this out. So I saved it. All I have to do now is refresh my page. And I had put in a link to how to debug JavaScript. And that is exactly what I'm following right now. I'm opening my DevTools. I'm in my sources. I'm going to highlight my JavaScript.